Senior Minister, what made you change your mind to comment on other people outside Marine Parade?
As a rule, I said, I prefer to have a clean election, and I would not want to comment on others outside. And Tan Jee Say was my PPS, so I would not want to go into the reasons why I did so. Neither do I want to comment further, because he was an able, dedicated, and loyal PPS. And if I were to go further, now by elaborating, I probably will hurt him further and damage him further. So I would not want to. I think unless I'm compelled to, better let him try and focus on his economic policies and let the others counter his economic policies. That's good enough.
What made you?
As I said, I would not want to elaborate further. If I comment further, then he will come back. Then I got to explain why, and that's going to damage him. So I would not want to do so. Just focus on his policies.
Have you spoken to him after you made those comments?
No.
Has he called you?
No. After the elections, he probably will email me. If he emails me, I email him back.
One more question on the NS part. Basically, NSP, they're saying that NSmen don't feel proud anymore, and by the in-camp training, right, it's just making up the hours. And what?
I would actually disagree. It's a very large system. Would you have NSmen that would feel that way? I'm sure there will be some, because obviously it is onerous, it's not easy. But certainly in my experience, and I think in our experience, we have met many NSmen who are committed, and I think I'm very proud of the fact that many of them come back and serve faithfully, whether on mission training, exercises, and so on and so forth. So that's a perspective that they might have, but I think that's not a reason to cut NS. I think that the whole function of the national service and the structure of the army is more fundamental than that. I think the army continues to try to make it a positive experience, and I think we have gone leaps and bounds from where we used to be. So I think that's actually an erroneous statement. It's actually inaccurate.
SM, besides just attesting to George Yio's abilities and capabilities as a foreign minister, I'm just wondering what else are you going to do to try to help the PAP win alternate years? So are you going to go in, throw yourself into...
No, as I said, I'm not in the thick of battle. This is a battle for George Yio. He's doing as much as he can do, and it is for PM to also work out a strategy. But I look at it from the point of somebody above the fray, from the point of Singaporeans' interest. As I said, one day we'll lose the GRC. I just hope it's not going to be a core member in future. I cannot say we'll never lose one. That is unrealistic. But I just hope whenever we lose one, it's not going to affect the team so much. If there are many pillars, knock down a few pillars and so on, you've got a team. But I would say, the desire for opposition is not something new. when he was PM, and myself felt it as long as 1984. So we are trying to find a way whereby we can let Singaporeans have their cake and eat it. Because we believe that Parliament must have room for alternative voices. We believe that you must have diversified opinion in Parliament. But in Singapore's election, if the party had done very well in the previous election and had good candidates better than opposition, in the past, opposition could produce good candidates. Chances are we will end up winning almost all the seats. You see? We are very happy, but we know that a large segment of Singaporeans feel that there's no voice on our side. So in 1984, we spent a lot of time trying to debate how to inject this opposition or alternative voices into Parliament. We could not think of a better scheme than NCMP. So today, if anybody can think of a better scheme than that, we are prepared to consider. So we thought of the NCMP scheme. But I was very cautious. Although the Constitution allows for 6, I prefer evolution. So I only had 3 NCMP schemes. Well, PM is a bit more adventurous, meaning he's prepared to take the risks. Because if he could feel that the desire is even stronger today. So he changed the Constitution to allow for 9 NCMPs. 9 is 10% of 87, House 87. That's a large number to entrench. Well, Workers' Party, Low Tia Kiang and civilians said, I'm not going to accept NCMP scheme. I'm not going to be an NCMP if I lose the election. Instead, being responsible. You want to be a voice in Parliament. You lose. You still go to Parliament and be a voice. What's the difference between elected and non-elected? other than the ability to vote on constitutional matters. But the voice is the same voice. Whether Lau Tia Kiang and Siva Lim are elected or not elected directly, the voice is the same voice. I don't see Lau Tia Kiang's voice suddenly become very soft. It's the same voice, is it? So we are trying to evolve a system where you have an array of opposition voices in Parliament. Then you can debate. And if they are good, you hold us to account in Parliament as NCMP. You go to answer. So they are trying to force the people to vote for them directly, saying, I'm not going to accept it. So we are trying to evolve a system where people have their cake and eat it. We are not saying you must therefore vote PAP all the time. No. We say vote for opposition candidates whom you think can help you in a constituency. Look after town council, can debate in Parliament, If they are good, they get elected, we accept it. We accept it, you see. But if, in case they lose, at any one time there will be 9 NCMPs here. So this is the way of letting Singaporeans have the cake and eat it. Well, it's up to Singaporeans to accept. I mean, they don't accept the scheme, well, that's up to them. But that's the way for us to move forward. Then they can have political stability.
But the thing is, we've just heard that activists and party members, even some of the party members are saying that they have never felt the need for opposition amongst the people until this election. I mean, even the streets, we ran a story on how they felt that the need for opposition is very high now. The desire for more opposition, elected opposition is very high now.
Because the reason is, we are now climbing up, a high mountain. We are nearing the top. It's much more difficult to deliver to the aspirations, to meet the aspirations of the people. You take yourself, you are young. Your standard of living today is much higher than my standard of living when I was young. I live in a house without modern sanitation. I cycled to school. I got a bursary to go to university. Oh, the moment I graduated, I was pro-PAP right away. No problem, you see, because I started from a low base. But you can't go back to the past. The young people today start from a high base. So how to meet the aspirations? So that's the challenge that we have. How to meet the aspirations of the younger people. We're not telling you go back to the past. That's wrong. But to be able to meet the aspiration, like housing, for example, what kind of housing, what price and so on, very difficult to meet. So therefore, when you have all these problems, you find that there's a certain restiveness. I don't blame you, because if your parents own a 5-room flat, and you're going to buy a 4-room flat, you're downgrading. That's the reality of life. If a parent owns a terrace house, the son cannot own a terrace house right away. There's no way. So he has, with his own money, he has to buy a 3-room, 4-room flat. So he says this is downgrading, right? In my time, whenever we bought something, it's upgrading. I felt that I was upgrading. So that's the reality of life. That's a challenge. So the key question is, how do we deliver results for people like you, the young people? That's the key.
Do you think it's a positive sign that the opposition has introduced more candidates that are highly qualified?
It is positive. It is positive. And that's a reflection of our educational standards. My time, only 2% of each cohort went to university. Today, 20%. Therefore, naturally, you have better qualified candidates. And it is positive. And that's the meaning of first world government, first world parliament by MM's definition. When MM talk about first world parliament, he meant quality people. So if you have opposition of quality, they come into parliament later on, I think that's a plus, because you can then engage in real debate on issues. See? So I would encourage them to find more and more such people. It makes our life much more difficult, I'd rather have, would you rather have slipper men contesting against us of good quality? My choice is to have good quality contesting against me. Then, if I lose, I know the Singaporeans will not lose. They won't lose because the other side is a good person. If you have a slipper man, and for some reason, we say the wrong thing, we lose, then I think Singapore is worse off. And coming to that, I can't resist but to say something about NSP. I look at the manifesto, I discuss with them, it's all motherhood statements. Where is the plan for implementing those motherhood statements? And then on NS, armed forces and so on, I got to challenge them, please flesh out what you mean by reduced army and so on. But I feel very, in a sense, I'm just amused, you see. that Nicosia has been asked to carry on the shoulder 4 men. So I could not believe that. 4 men, in the 60s, in the 30s, being carried by one young woman. She's a very able woman. I have met her. Very personable, very photogenic. But I don't think it's fair for her to carry 4 men. But the question is, can they run Marine Parade GRC? Can they run a town council? That's the key. So, well, by all means, I can look at them, but just examine. The day after election, who will be in charge of their lives in Marine Parade GRC? In my case, I'm already preparing for my eventual retirement. When, I don't know. But I'm preparing for my eventual retirement, so I have asked the PM to send in BG Tan. And one day, hopefully he does well, he becomes an office holder, then he takes over from me. That's the way we run things, you see. Why? Singaporeans' interest is important.
There's this one-party SDA that is recommending for nominated ministers for you to bring back. Do you think that...
Don't be seduced by all these arguments. You see. Then you don't take elections seriously. We don't take it seriously. We lose, we just appoint somebody from outside. I don't think it's a good idea. I'd rather that we have people, ministers nominated or appointed from the elected MPs. Otherwise, why should I take it seriously? If I lose George Yeo, I lose Joo Chiat, what's the problem? I appoint somebody. You should not appoint them because they have lost election. You should appoint somebody else new. If there's somebody else outside the Joo Chiat and George Yeo, I would say stand for election.
But the point is that they want to bring back these ministers because they want to ensure stability. That's
no, that is. Now they argue. Supposing we had argued, that we should have appointed ministers, they would argue the other way. Surely they argue the other way. That this is nonsense. They must be elected first. So don't be seduced by their arguments. At the end of the day, what I would like to do is focus on issues which are of concern to Singaporeans and who can resolve your problems. That's key.
Do you think it's an issue raised by an NSP that NSmen are at a disadvantage when they're seeking the same job as compared to a foreigner? Do you think this is a problem?
I don't think, there will be people who from time to time raise as an issue, but we don't see that as a particular disadvantage. In fact, I would say that I think a lot of our NSmen actually, because of their responsibilities in their NS appointments, actually they develop their leadership skills, organizational skills, which can be an asset to companies as well. So it would vary from company to company, but I think there is value add as well. So I would say that that's not a wholly accurate statement as well.
So on NS, I don't know whether we still do this annual survey, on attitude in NS.
We do.
So when I was defense minister, we did that, and I think they continue. You got to monitor the mood on the ground of the NS, the morale, very important. We monitor that quietly, because if the morale goes down, and we do not know, as SDF generals and defense minister, when they have a crisis, the morale is down, you are in trouble. So we monitor all the time. And we know that generally the morale is high. People are proud to be NSmen. So you still do, isn't it?
We do.
The latest results?
No, I think it's still positive. I think it is important to track this because, like I said, capabilities are really nothing if the will to fight is not there. And the will to fight is really in terms of confidence, in terms of level of commitment. And we find that actually our NSmen are very committed.
But we are addressing the issue of more and more foreigners in Singapore. Because NSmen, can quite rightly ask, there are so many foreigners over here, who am I defending? It's a legitimate question, which PM, SAF, and the others have to address. We should not dismiss that lightly. It is, a real issue of concern to the younger people. Okay, anything else? Right? So, how would you report? Small issues, big issues?
Some interesting issues.
It's quite surprising that for all that the PAP does, backup plans and all, you all don't have a backup for George Yeo. It's quite surprising to hear.
You can't find them. How can you have backup so easily?
But being faced with possible...
You cannot have a backup, because if you have a good backup, it should be in the lineup. He's a backup for me. Chan Chun-Sing is a backup for MM. That's what we're doing. Ong Yi-Kang is a backup, for somebody else. You see, Heng Swee Keat is a backup for Taman, right? So they're all there. But who is the backup Prime Minister? We don't know. That is for them to show their ability to lead, to explain, to mobilize. So we don't know. But PM is now trying to find a backup for himself. So how can he have a backup from outside? And then George Chua is gone. Maybe somebody new can become a foreign minister. Maybe somebody old can become a foreign minister. But you just go through, you take up from this hole to that hole, there's another hole there. Because Jakumar has retired. Lim Boon Yang has retired. Lim Boon Heng has retired, you see. Lim Boon Heng, not as foreign minister. So you can go through. Yoo Chiat Tong has retired. I think he was a foreign minister before. Wong Kan Seng, he was a foreign minister before, but he's also finding a replacement for himself. So when we run Singapore, we run on the basis, you see, that we try and cover for one another in the long term. But it's not so easy just have somebody else to back up. PM goes today, what happens? Yes, there's a backup. Somebody from DPM will take over, DPM Teo will take over, backup. Then we'll take stuff from DPM Teo as defense minister. Not so easy. I'm sure one of them can take over later on, but immediately after the election, you want BG Tan to take over as defense minister? I would say better test his political skills first. So that's the way you plan for Singapore and Singapore's interests.